Like and follow if you love horror. Good news, Joe Jack butted in. Jerry said if we can get a sample of the goo, we can upload it as a way to track it in on Inquisitor. Finally, some good news. Miranda stood up straight and thought aloud. All right, if I functioned on chemicals alone, what ways might it leave my body? I don't breathe, eat, sweat, or defecate. None of the Vicks managed to injure me. I I know where we might find it, Diana said, deep in thought, like her old self again. The Vic at the beach, blunt force trauma to the head. They didn't find a weapon, but what if he didn't use one? We're talking about a human of incredible strength. What if he used his fist? It would have been so large forensics might have thought it was a club or a rock. If he tore a knuckle on a shard of skull, would he bleed this chemical? That's a big if, Ronnie molded over. No, that's a start, and right now it's all we got. Miranda was glad Saperstein was still impressing her colleagues. They've transported the body to the county coroner. We can request our own examination. Joe Jack, get eyes on this place. Yes, sir, he said, digging through a fanny pack hidden under his blazer. Ma'am, he said, remembering the correct response too late. All seeing eye. Joe Jack pulled out a simple copper pendant with a simple eye etched into it. He placed it on the mantel, then pulled up his phone. As he typed in a few things, an electric blue network of runes and equations fell over top of the pendant. Enchanting, Joe Jack punned, shooting Diana a wry grin. The agents collected themselves and left. Diana followed behind the black windowless panel van as Joe Jack drove her new team back to their office in Houston. She wasn't sure what to expect from an FBI office housing magic. Would it be a library? A castle? Would it be as high-tech as the bizarre phone? A cyber-electronic paradise of weird? She was vaguely disappointed when Joe Jack parked in front of a nondescript office building. It was boring, but that wasn't a bad thing. Boring meant less harassment. Boring meant they could do their job. Miranda was waiting for her, a key card and lanyard dangling from her hand. Diana's new career in a small plastic square. She took it from Miranda wordlessly, her mind 10,000 miles away, trying to parse together what this new reality meant for her. Would she have to enroll in classes to learn an entirely new form of forensics? Diana opened the door and walked inside. She idly turned her eyes towards the large office room, trying to pick out which desk would have been reserved for her. She was so wrapped up in her thoughts that she nearly missed the man. Nearly. He was beautiful, but not in an effeminate way. He possessed that sort of attractiveness that is wrapped up in an aura of the exotic. Diana stared. The man was thin. His elegant, toned arms disappeared into a snug punk rock t-shirt. His eyes were large, and every one of his features seemed to have been delicately carved by some painstaking sculptor. His skin was gray. His hair looked like brushed steel. There were odd, glowing tattoos that looked like a mix of sacred geometry and binary decorating most of his otherwise flawless skin. Even his eyes were colored oddly, like two pools of superheated copper. To top it all off, two skeletal black bat-like wings curled over his shoulders, typing with inhuman speed at the computer at which the man was sitting. Scattered all around the work area were candy bar wrappers, empty syrup bottles, and a half-emptied box of pixie sticks. Diana continued to stare. Joe Jack grinned as he stepped up behind her. I suppose you ain't seen many Faye before. Jera, come eat the fresh meat. Everyone but Diana glared at Joe Jack. Fae? As in fairy? As in the European legends and folktales? The man, Jera, moved from his chair and approached Diana, his wings behind him, reaching out and tapping against the surroundings, like a blind man's cane or cat whiskers. More or less. His voice was soft, deeper than she would have guessed given his size. He couldn't be more than 5'2". Though, before you make any reckless assumptions, you might ask for information from those who know more about us, rather than relying on rather outdated and bigoted accounts of our behavior. He extended a hand. Diana was again surprised. His skin was warm and tingled slightly. Jira Vandover. I handle the technical side of the operations here at the UPD. Diana gawked all the same. You're a fairy, and you do IT? Technically, I'm a gremlin. It's different in a way. We're sort of outcasts. The FBI and a few other governing agencies around the world have given us safe harbor in exchange for... He waved his hand in the air as if to show the vagueness of it all. Work. Work you should get back to, Jera. Miranda cut in. Get things set up and meet us in the briefing room. Diana, your desk is over there. She pointed to a desk at where a large box was sitting, her belongings having been transferred while she was away. Get situated, and then the same thing for you. Miranda wished she could give the new agents more time to acclimate to her surroundings and talk with Jira. He was weird, but amongst the Fae, he might be the most normal, and Diana would need someone like that. But with a Frankenstein on the loose, Miranda couldn't afford to give anyone that luxury. Moments later, the entire team was assembled in a small briefing room. Ron, Jira were sitting respectfully and attentively. Joe Jack was scribbling in a torn notepad. Nothing to do with his actual job as Special Agent Coolidge, but he had yet to hear anyone on the team bitch and whine whenever he went into the break room kitchen to whip up some revitalizing grub. He wasn't sure what to make of the new agent. Joe Jack glanced over at Diana, standing next to a chair. She didn't seem awkward, not in the way some did. It looked more like she was trying so hard not to be awkward that it was becoming uncomfortable. That would pass, probably. Something about the danger of the job made it much easier for others to gel together. Joe Jack didn't have that problem. He had hunted jackalopes, hodags, and other things through the bush as a kid, and managed a restaurant as an adult. He would make it work no matter what. Joe Jack flinched when Miranda stalked in. She wasn't right. He suspected he knew what was wrong with her too, but it wasn't his place to deal with her life choices. All right, get seated. Miranda got down to business of no nonsense. Here's what we know. RUP. Unnatural perp. Joe Jack leaned over to Diana and whispered. Miranda shot him a dirty look but continued. Has been collecting the amygdala of our Vix for a year. Has been collecting the amygdala of our Vix once a year, every year for the last 8 years, possibly longer. We got a lucky break in the case, and he returned to the same site for the second year in a row. It pains me to say this, but we dragged our heels to the point where he got sloppy before we even got close. During his last harvest, he went a little overboard and missed the opportunity to collect enough amygdala to refuel himself for another year. That means at some point he's going to rear his abnormally large head and get himself another Vic. We know he camped in the area. We know he's on foot. We know he hasn't gone far. He'll need an isolated place, and soon, for the final harvest. Unfortunately, that leaves miles of potential campsites and residents around the area. Any local urban legends we know of? Jera asked. Nothing. Miranda folded her hands behind her back. A monster pushing 8 foot wanders around a park for over a year and no one notices? Ronnie felt like he was onto something. Urban legends always popped up around these perps. That smack is odd to anyone else? Even with a place as secluded as the Texas bush, someone should have seen something. Explain. Miranda trusted Ronnie's instincts but needed something tangible. Well, Cropsy the Ghoul had miles of underground tunnels and networks of abandoned buildings in Staten Island, but he still became an urban legend, Ronnie explained. So how does a giant humanoid move from campground to campground around a lake without getting noticed? Ronnie, please get to the point. Miranda was usually frustrated. Miranda was usually this frustrated when she felt her department was dropping the ball on a case. He doesn't travel around the lake, he travels through it. Ronnie felt like that should have been blatantly obvious to anyone. He doesn't need to breathe, he doesn't need to eat, he doesn't defecate. He could camp out at the bottom of the lake for years easily. Miranda nodded.